Today we're going to do our regular, what I call our regular warm-up. And then we're going to hold poses, and I'm going to go over details of the poses as we hold them. We're not going to hold them for a long time, but we're going to have time enough to hold them and for me to go through some details about the poses. Again, these are my details, and they may not be the same for every teacher or every class. My details come from a variety of different styles of yoga. So there may be more than you really want to know. There may be less. The details will also include some variations for times when you may be having back pain or knee pain or otherwise. And again, these are going to be recorded without music, and I will have them available. I will cut out, because I started the recording at 20 after, I'll cut out that part and I'll save it as an MP3, and I will have a folder up in the cloud, and I will just be adding them to the folder. It would behoove you to download them rather than try to watch them up there, and I will send out an email to that effect, because I'm not going to keep them up there forever. I use that cloud for other things. If you have difficulty downloading from whatever your connection is, if you go to the library, even with your laptop or your whatever, you can use their Wi-Fi, I believe, with your equipment, and download from there, or McDonald's, or places like that. So anyway, we're going to do a regular warm-up so that we're a little bit warmed up when we hold some poses, and we're going to hold a lot of just the basic, what Judith last year always called the basic 30. At the last class, I will also be showing you some books, good reference books, that you can use to practice on your own, including what I think is the best yin book. So anyway, let's stand wide, toes turned out. Remember, when you bend your knees, that you always want to bend them out, trying to bend them over your feet, your kneecap. See how the kneecap's a little bit, the knee is here, but the kneecap is out a little bit. The kneecap toward your feet. You don't want them to bend in like, you really, really don't want them to bend in like this. If your hips are tight, and they can come in a little bit, but I've seen a lot, and that's just, you're going to wreck your knees. If you can't bend your knees, just bend them a little bit, or not at all, for when we do the warm-up. So inhale, arms up. And exhale, bend at the knees, bend at the hips, and scoop if you're bending the knees. Inhale, back up. And exhale, down. Keep moving. And again, rest when you need to. You can rest in standing wide. You can have a chair beside you and sit down and rest. Next time up, adding Goddess. This is a good general warm-up. Again, knees out. If you can't do that, don't bend your knees. Just move your arms. And in time, your hips may open up more, or they may not. And that's okay too. You just modify. And since you're going to have copies of this, you won't need to take notes about all the details of stuff. Add in the side stretches from Goddess with the Goddess in between. Legs are straight with the side stretches. Knees are never locked, but they are straight, which is a hard concept. Straight legs without locking your knees. It takes time to get that. One more time through. And then inhale, arms up. Right foot turns out, left foot straight ahead, or it can turn in, pressing the heel out. Bend your right knee. Warrior two. Now hold it. With Warrior two, obviously, one of the big important things is your knee, your shin being straight up and down. It'll appear like your kneecap is going a little bit past, but your shin is straight up and down. The other thing you want to try to think about is pushing into the outer edge of the back foot. That realigns that back ankle and lifts the arch a little bit. This back leg is straight. Don't let this front knee tilt in. It tends to want to do that. Again, this is like we just talked about. So you want to try to keep it straight. You can even put a block here, in a wall here, and a block here, so that your foot is that far away from the wall, and then you bring it up and you press just lightly against the wall to try to work on getting that. We'll do other details on the other side since we're almost done here. Inhale, arms up, right foot forward, left foot out. Now we have the foot, we have the back foot, we have the knee. Shoulders. Try to keep your shoulders over your hips. But if you notice, you get a little bit of a different action in this back of the back hip. So if you need to reach forward a little bit, you can do so. But don't make it a intentional, I need to reach forward, because that's what this is all about. It's not. It's about trying to stay straight up and down, spine equal, straight between your pelvis. Don't let that knee tilt in. This is what you want. Press your shoulders down. You can always roll your palms forward and bring your shoulders back a little bit, and then just turn your wrists down so your shoulders stay back. You can always do it with your arms on your hips if it gets to be too much. And again, pay attention every time you move your arms or your torso, check your knee, because really, when you don't pay attention to it, it sneaks in. Inhale, arms up, left foot forward, right foot out. And let's do Warrior two, and let's do Reverse Warrior. Right arm up. Knees, when you reach your right arm up, that it pulls more here, and it's going to try to pull that knee in. Be aware of that. This hip, by the way, can always come forward when you have a knee bent. You'll find some traditions want you to rotate the thigh. Yeah, I know, right? What's that mean? But they want you to line up so that your hips are lined up parallel, but it tends to bring your knee in. This is more important than worrying about this hip. This hip being forward doesn't hurt anything. This knee coming forward does. So that's the important part. Where are we going? Reverse. And you can do it. Oh, we'll get there. We're about to change sides. Inhale, arms up. Left foot out. Change sides. Left arm up. And this traditionally should be try to be a curve to the right, but you can have it straight. You can put your hand on your hip. You can slide it down your leg. You can wrap it around behind you. All of these are acceptable. None is better than the other. It all depends on what you want to do. But watch that front knee. You can really curve it if you want, or you can even reach your arms straight up. You don't have to curve it above your head. So that's, and Reverse Warrior is kind of new on the scene. Maybe 10 years. I don't remember ever seeing it before that. I'm trying to watch the clock. Okay, come back. Both feet forward. When you swan dive to a forward bend, arms are out. They don't go up and they don't go back. They're out. And then down. It'd be even better if they're a little lower than if they're too high, pulling on your shoulders. Stretch down in a wide forward bend. Just hold it. While I talk more. We're going to do a balancing pose next. Balancing poses are good to do when you're somewhat warmed up. Well, there's two things about balancing poses. Let's step or jump our feet to mountain distance. And then just slowly roll up. Now I usually do balancing poses with my right foot down first because that's my better balanced side. If I'm going to demonstrate, I don't want to be falling all over the place, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to fall over the place. The phases of the moon we do think affects, we're mostly water. It can affect your balance. With balancing poses, let's do tree pose while I talk. So right foot down, bring your left foot up and either put it on your outer calf or above your knee. Your toes can maybe just touch the top of the knee. People tend to hook the heel above the knee and then have the arch of the foot wrapping around the side of the knee. If you are really careful and you really know what you're doing and you've been doing this for years, that might be okay. But you don't want to push on the knee from the inside. The knee does not bend that way. And unless you can do it without any pressure, without any push, don't do it that way. Your arms can be overhead, out to the side, on your hips, in prayer pose, palms together overhead, interlace your fingers, whatever works. And I started to say, balancing poses are good to do when you're a little bit warmed up, but your muscles aren't extremely tired yet. However, sometimes you balance better when your muscles are tired because your body is going to find the best way to balance. Your muscles are tired, your body has to adapt. It finds the best way to use your bones, your skeleton, to stand, to balance. So you can try it both ways. Lower down, left foot down, and lean onto it first. And lift slowly. Feel your way. You can hold the knee for a moment and get your balance, and then put your foot on your inner thigh. Knee is supposed to go out to the side, but sometimes if you force it out, it'll turn your torso. So have it out the best you can. And again, you can do whatever you need to with your arms. If you're holding on to a support, do it with one finger, if you can. Pretend that if you push on it, like if I push on this partition, it will go. Pretend if you push on it too hard, it'll fall. Using a stick is also good because a stick wiggles, so you have to still do your balance. If you notice, a balance pose works your ankle. It gets us ankle muscles working. That's where the balance starts. It starts with being firmly planted with the bottom of your foot and having your alignment, not letting your head go forward, trying to keep your chin back, trying to keep your shoulders over your hips, standing on your skeleton with as little muscle use as you possibly can. Best you can. You can do it against a wall, at least tree pose you can. And that's actually not bad because if you start to tilt, you'll go over. Whereas if you're holding onto a wall, you start to tilt, you won't go over. Okay, release. Let's stand wide again. Right foot turns out. It's always generally best to have your front foot, which is the one turned out, along with the arch of the back foot. You can also do heel-to-heel alignment. It depends on where you feel better balance. We're going to keep the front knee straight. We're going to tilt the pelvis. We're going to do a triangle. So you can reach your arms out. And sometimes people reach forward, staying straight sideways, reach forward, and then go down. Sometimes you tilt your pelvis, trying to get the right pelvis down and in, the left pelvis up, and it may be out a little bit. And you try not to go forward. It is not about touching the floor. It's about stretching the side of the body. It's not about one of these, or even a block. Try to stay sideways. And if we're not warmed up enough yet, don't go down very far. Hold the pose. Feel it. Try not to lock the knee. If you need to, you can release it a little bit more. Remember, in Vini Yoga, it's released considerably, and it extends this top arm. But we can reach it up. That's the more traditional kind with the legs straighter Again, push into the outer edge of the back foot. Be aware of your alignment. Lengthen. Even when you stand and you inhale and lengthen your spine, you can do this sideways too. You can inhale and lengthen your spine here. So when you hold a pose, you're not just sitting there, standing there holding a pose. You're doing things. Okay, pull yourself up with your hand as if somebody has a hold of it. Don't just push up with your leg. Change sides. Tilt your pelvis as much as you can. Basically, you're keeping the spine in a straight line with the pelvis until the very end. You may curve down a little bit. Hold it. Triangle, Trikonasana. You can wrap your top arm around behind you sometimes to get a little bit more stretch, but be careful with your shoulders. You can reach the arm overhead and not go down as far with your reach with the lead hand, which is the foot that's turned out. That's the lead arm. So you can reach a little bit more and get a more of a stretch here. Pay attention to what you feel in your back, in your hips, in your shoulders. Modify. Even if I have never, or any teacher has ever said, you can do this to modify, do it. Make up your own modifications. Do what works for you. Just be careful of knees and hips and shoulders and try to maintain good alignment, safe alignment. Safe alignment is more important than, quote, good alignment. That's why we don't do yoga in the Olympics, because there is no perfect pose. Pull yourself back up. Turn both feet forward and swan dive. To forward bend and hold it. Now let's lunge to the right. On your fingertips, lift up. And you know one of the modifications is you can always lower that back knee down. But notice it's back there. It's not directly under your hip. So it's still a lunge kind of thing happening with the front leg. Watch your knee. Always. Bent knee. Single bent knee. You always need to be aware of that. That's your first thing to check, is your knee. Use blocks under your hands. Sometimes it's way far down there, and you may want to flatten your back and lift your chest a little bit, so use blocks. Don't hurt yourself. There is no pose that anybody has to do, ever. There are so many poses that work the same area, strengthening, in this case, the quads, stretching the hip flexors, that you'll get the same benefit from some other pose. Walk through center, bring your feet with you, lunge left, one side. After 49 years, 29 years, 30 years of doing yoga, I'm still sighted. But I should have taken videos of me in the beginning. I was extremely sighted, but I can still feel a difference one side to another in a lot of poses, but a lot less than when I started, and that is all that matters to me. I am more flexible than when I started. I'm still tight, and compared to so many other yoga people, unflexible, but not to me. To me, I'm really flexible for where I was. And that, again, that's all that matters. I can do what I like most of the time, unless I stub my toe and break it again or something. But generally speaking, that's all that matters. There's no one pose that has to be done. And when you sequence, don't worry about it. I know how to sequence. I'm a teacher, but if you don't know how to sequence, it doesn't matter. Just do some poses. Come back to center. Feet straight ahead. And stretch down. And think, if you want to do some warrior poses, you might want to warm up your hips a little bit. You know, think about what you might want to do. Just think about what body parts you'll be using and see if there's some ways you can warm them up before doing a more strenuous pose. Okay, let's lunge to the right again, and we're going to step back to downward dog. You can pedal your feet, which is a good way to gently, slowly pedal your feet to start to stretch your calves a little bit more, warming up the legs a little bit more, pumping the blood through the legs to warm the muscles up. That's what's happening. That's why your muscles get warm, is you're moving blood through them a little bit more than just the normal routine. That's why you're stiff in the morning. You haven't been circulating more blood. It's just enough for maintenance. Both heels to the mat. Now, as you know, you can put padding under your wrists, rolling up the mat using a blanket. You can try turning your hands a little bit in different alignment. It'll affect your shoulders too. So you may try putting your hands in slightly different alignment, no matter what any teacher says. They'll walk around and say, point your fingers straight forward. You say, I have to do it this way for my shoulders. They'll shut up. Trust me, I do it. I go to classes, they walk around, do this. And I say, no, I have to do this for my back. I have to, and that's it. They're fine. They're not, believe me, they're not going to push in to do things the minute you say you have an issue that you need to be careful with. So find turning your toes out stretches your calves more. Separating your feet more is nicer on your back. Bending your knees a little bit is way nicer on your back. That's a Vinyasa style. They always bend their knees. Come down to hands and knees and rest in child's pose. So downward dog with knees bent is fine, and you will get corrected on that in every class you go to, except mine. Maybe, although I would probably say, can you straighten your legs? Because I usually would cue because we think maybe you didn't hear or you're new and you don't know how to do it, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Because I would cue probably straight, if you can, straight legs or something, because I would think maybe you don't know. Okay, come up to hands and knees. We're going to do warrior one with 100,000,000 details. So step your right foot forward. Lift your left knee up. Shift your left foot a little bit forward, closer forward, what is now your forward, and a little bit out to the left. And lower the knee. Turn the foot, but not much. See, my toes are still pointing to the right. I'm not turning my foot because this is frontal pose. And you can always do with your heel lifted. Come up to warrior one. Now, heel lifted, you'll get corrected on that. Let's say I have to do that for my back. You can do it with your heel lifted and your knee bent a little bit. That flattens the back, so it feels better. This causes a kind of torquing. One side is arched in more than the other. You want to stand on two railroad tracks. You're going to be asked to align like a lateral pose, heel to arch, always, almost always in a class. You say, I do it this way for my back. That's what I say. And you will see a lot of people doing warrior two with their hips sideways and reaching forward and twisting. We want our hips to be lined up with the short edge of the mat. And you won't see that in a lot of classes here. They're all turned sideways. You're not supposed to do that. I know that. So That's why if you stand with your feet apart, your hips can rotate better. Okay, go back down. Lower your knee and rest in child's pose. Hold it. And I've seen them watch me. We'll do warrior one, and then we'll go to warrior two, and I shift my foot back, heel to arch alignment, because it's a lateral pose. The hips are lateral, sideways. The hips are facing this way, the short edge of the mat when doing warrior one. They're facing the long. So anyway, I do what I do, and you should as well. Come back up to hands and knees. Left foot forward. Lift your right knee up. Adjust your feet. Come up to warrior one. And granted, there are people who can square. It's called squaring your hips. Really, it's paralleling your hips. Square their hips and have their foot back in heel to arch alignment, but they generally have narrow hips, and they're generally men. And originally yoga was taught generally by men. So a lot of the alignment details come from 10,000 years ago, when people were smaller bones, smaller body, and mostly men with narrow hips. So adjust for you. Where are we? Here. Arms can be up, palms facing each other. Your elbows can be bent and out, which is easier on the back. Reaching your arms up arches your back. So you can always bring your elbows, again, you can always bend your knee, lift your heel. But you want to have that back foot rotated as much in the same direction with the heel down, because that's what turns the hip forward. If you have it like this, it's going to turn that hip out. It's really hard to bring it, and you almost don't want to bring it forward, right? I hope I'm getting everything. You can also sometimes do it with interlacing your fingers and lifting your heart. Warrior one is a back arching pose, ultimately, but you don't want to do it, or you don't need to do it that way, and you won't see it usually in classes that way, because they're twisted, torqued, and they can't arch back, but that's beside the point. Ooh, that's bad. Okay, lower back down, lower your knee, go back to child's pose. Child's pose, even child's pose, you'll see that the people want you to have your knees together. And there is one reason for that, which is that it works the diaphragm muscle a little bit more. When the diaphragm contracts, it pushes out the belly, and it makes the diaphragm muscle have to work harder to contract down. I like to have my knees apart to give my belly room so I can breathe more deeply, but that's me. And again, knees together, narrow hips, knees apart, hips angled out like women's hips are. Okay, warrior one, frontal poses, any frontal pose, same thing. And I actually, on some of my mats, I have lines drawn where I can place my heels, or it makes it a visual for people. I do it so automatically, I don't think about it. Come to hands and knees, and let's just do some cat-cow. And this is a good description of the breath. Inhale when your chest opens and you expand your rib cage. Exhale when you close the front of the body and you pull in the belly. Inhale, the diaphragm goes down and pushes up. Exhale, the diaphragm relaxes and goes back up in like a teepee, like a tent. It's big and fat and wide. But exhale, it goes back up and relaxes. Inhale, it contracts. We think just the opposite, but you can see diagrams and movies of the diaphragm working. But inhale usually lifts you. It'll lengthen you. Exhales usually carry you into a stretch and closes the front of the body. So if you're wondering, how do I breathe? Think about where you're going. Okay, let's come to seated. Both of your feet together, heels in close if you can. Support the knees. If your knee is way up in the air, that's okay. Don't try to force it down. Don't do that. It's okay. Just give it some support though. That way you can be more comfortable, and it doesn't have to be both sides. And in time, you can give it lower support, and maybe lower support, stretch forward and down, hold the stretch, bound angle. It's odd that the more you can bend your knees, the safer it is to do this kind of stretch with your knee. When your leg is out, you're putting pressure on the bottom leg. It wants to go up, and you're putting pressure on the top part of the leg to make it go down, and it all is happening right here at the knee. If you bring it in, they're both about the same. So if one's going up, they're both going up, right? Does that make sense? It's really important to remember the bottom leg sometimes wants to do something different from the top leg as far as the pose goes. And whenever that happens, it all happens in the knee joint. And the knee is not designed to bend sideways. It bends one way, hinge. It's when we have tight hips and we're trying to do something, and this part of the leg is going one way because it's tight, it may be going in, this part of the leg is going out, and it's so be aware of that. Boy, I'm really in a mood today. Okay, let's do some other just regular stretching. In the gentle class, we're going to do the knee hug, knee circle routine, which is a really good routine for the morning. And if you don't have a copy of it already, you will after these classes. So right leg straight forward, left foot touching your right inner thigh, support for the left knee as needed. Stretch down over your right leg. Also, it can be a good idea if you tend to hyperextend to put something underneath the knee when you stretch so that it stays slightly bent. And that's better on your back and easier on your back. So if it hurts your hip or your back, do a straight leg forward bend. Try bending the knee, or you can put something under the knee so it can stay relaxed and you can stretch down over it. Hold the stretch. This is a good back stretch, hip stretch, leg stretch. We think of when we're stretching legs that we're stretching only leg muscles, but we're not. We're stretching the back, even the hip flexors. I posted something on Facebook about the hip flexors. They wrap around behind. If your hip flexors are tight, not only does it affect your knee and your hip, but it affects your back. So you need to be aware of those things when you're practicing. Think about what you're stretching, what you're strengthening, and what all it's connected to. That really is important. And you can do it. I know you can. Always move slowly into a stretch. Don't do it mindlessly, especially stretches. Come back up and let's just change sides. Left leg straight forward. Inhale to lengthen and to lift and to stretch. Exhale, try reaching forward, and then let yourself round down to wherever that stretch goes. On this side, it's different. Hold the stretch. Feel the stretch. Notice where you feel it. Notice if you're holding tension. Relax the leg, bend the knee slightly. Do what you need to do, and it doesn't mean that you're not doing it the right way. You are. These are all in numerous books, in numerous classes. These are all just different ways of doing the same pose. And it's not wrong. Neither is a straight leg whiter or better. It's not. It just is a different way. That's such a hard concept for we Westerners to understand. And probably not just Westerners. slowly back up. Let's go with the right leg straight, left knee bent. Take the right leg out to the right. Again, you can put a blanket, keep the knee slightly bent. You can have support for this knee, right? Try to stretch over your left foot. The body is going to want to go like this because that's the easy way. Your body really tries to find the easiest, less painful way for you to do things. It shouldn't be painful, but this should be challenging in here. I remember the first time I did this. I didn't do this very often. Maybe the past 10 years. It was like maybe here. I'm thinking, gee, that wide, both legs wide is easier than this. But in time, if you're careful, if you don't bounce into it, if you don't go beyond where you should, if it's challenging but not painful, the muscle will relax, your body and your mind will say, oh, okay, it's not going to hurt me. I'll relax a little bit. I'll allow the stretch to happen. I know you've all heard this 1,000,001 times, and I apologize, but this is it. So, okay, come back up, change sides, right leg in, left leg out, stretch over your right foot. Slowly, paying attention to how far you should go. Don't stop before you need to, and don't go beyond where you should. Modify. Sit on a blanket, especially if you have to be careful with hips. You should, any seated pose, no matter what it is, you should be on a blanket. Fold it over, like at least that high, or two of them, or a bolster. Bolsters can be pretty high for some of these, though. Trust me, if you ever go with me to a class, you'll see me on blankets. And if we're going to sit for a while, if there's like a meditation at the end, I always drag my blanket over and fold it up. I'm not going to sit there flat on the floor for 10 minutes. Why? Slowly come back up. Sit wide. Stretch sideways to the right. And if you want, you can try it with the left heel in, stretch sideways to the right, and see how that feels different. And then do wide. It always amazes me, at least for my body, that it's harder for me to do with the foot in than the leg out. But that's because this is pulling more on my back and my hip through the quads than this. Anyway, just hold a sideways stretch. Careful, arm can be laying on your side. Try not to rotate. Try to just go to the side, even if it's not very far. Feel it. Know what it is. Know where you're stretching. Think about it. There are a lot of good videos out there. Oftentimes, at the end of the video, they'll show you details about poses. But and they'll give you a little bit in the video. Most of the time. Slowly come back up. Side stretch to the other side. And hold it. Everybody is different. Everybody has gotten to this place through different accidents, different lifestyles. It's one of the reasons yoga is so good, because it does have so many ways. It's accessible to everybody. Chair yoga. Anybody can do some yoga. The more you practice, the more you'll be able to do. I'm going to do some, I don't think today though. Yeah, I'm going to do some standing No, I'm just going to do lying down core today. But I am going to do one class with a lot of the standing things, which may be too much, but come back slowly up and stretch straight forward wide. But that way you'll have them all in one place, in one recording, and you can do some standing that way, and then some floor if you want. And that way I won't forget to do the same thing, although there will be repeats. There has to be, in some cases, warm-ups. And it's really, really important to be careful with backs and core. As you know, as we talk about, you won't get a lot of that detail in core classes. Some you may. I mean, it depends on the teacher. Depends on their background. Slowly up. Now, I tend to not do back strengthening in yoga anymore, but let's do it because of the core class. So let's come down on our bellies. You can use a strap, or you can, if you cannot interlace your fingers behind your back, you can use a strap so that your hands are apart, the backs of your hands are like on your buttocks, or even a little bit wider if you want. If you can interlace your fingers with your palms facing, but palms apart, you can do it that way. Strap is nice, though. Palms face up, holding the strap. Lift straight legs just off the mat. Lift your arms just a little bit, not high. You don't want to pull on your shoulders. You lift your chest using your back muscles. Don't lift your head and look forward. Don't feel it in the back of the neck, but lift your head a little bit, enough that it's off the ground, obviously. And think about your neck being in the same curve as the rest of the spine. And believe it or not, stay low, even if you can. If you stay low, you're working more of your back. If you go up high, you're working more of the low back, which is okay, but we do a low back. Yeah. So stay low and work the rest of the back as well. Just a gentle curve up. This is called, I don't know, some people call it locust, I call it boat. No boat. No boat to China. Lower down, sit back on your heels in child's pose. Rest. And when you practice on your own, please give yourself time to lay on your back, which you can do now. Lay on your back, arms by your side, palms up, heart open, rotating your shoulders back a little bit without forcing anything, staying relaxed. Again, if I'm going to lay in Shavasana, if I know that I'm looking at my watch and there's a lot of class time left and we've started Shavasana, and I'll know that it's going to be there for a while, I put a rolled up blanket under my knees. There was a time when I could not lay with my legs straight without pain immediately. I can now, but I'm more comfortable still with the rolled up blanket under my knees, and I'm good with that. I can do that for the rest of my life. I don't care. It feels better. It allows me to relax. It doesn't aggravate my back. So you're lying on your back, focusing on your breath. Feel the belly expand first if you can. As the diaphragm contracts down, pushing out on the belly, pulling air into the bottom of your lungs. And then let your rib cage expand. And then when you exhale, just let everything sink back down. The exhale is using the ab muscles. Generally, you squeeze them in to get the last little bit of air out. And the intercostal muscles. If you learn to exercise that diaphragm, you get more oxygen. Isn't it funny? We need more oxygen to feed the body, to give us energy, but we take antioxidants. And I read the reason for that. If you, I posted, I think, something about it on Facebook. It's really interesting how the body works. Too much or something, or waste products, or I forget how it works. But you can look it up. In the meantime, breathe, because that's important. Antioxidants and food and healthy eating will take care of the rest. And I haven't heard from the lady that has the space. Angela was going to give her my name and have her contact me, but I need to contact Angela and tell her I haven't heard from her yet. Angela's a very busy lady, though, so she may not have remembered. She was at the picnic. She stood with the other lady with the long blonde hair, the tall lady. Okay, let's start with hugging both knees and rocking side to side, massaging your back. We're just going to loosen up a little bit, massage our back, because we're going to be doing the leg lifts and things. And again, you don't have to do all of these. This month is just to relearn some of the stuff that we do, because I've talked to you and you try to do things, but you forget stuff. So this is just, there's going to be jam-packed. And we may not do as many reps, so we get more in. And then when you practice on your own, you can do more reps. Okay, arms by your side, legs up. Slowly lower your right leg to the floor. Let your heel touch. Slowly tighten your low abs and bring it back up. Push your back down. Don't let your back arch up when you lift your leg. Left leg slowly down. Slowly back up. Keep moving, and here are some of the details. If you can't lift your leg up so your thighs are pointing toward the ceiling, you bend your knees. You don't lift up here because your hamstrings are tight. That's going to be constantly pulling you back in your abs, and you're going to get tired. We do stuff here intentionally, but not now. So bend your knees. And you can also keep your knee slightly bent as you go down, so the back of the knee doesn't touch the mat, just your heel does. And back up. Slowly, don't swing your legs. Use your muscles. Push your back down. You can also flex your foot, tightening your muscle as you go down. And point your toes, tightening your front of the muscles as you come up. Flex the other leg. Point. This is primarily for the low abs. People have trouble working the low abs because they end up hurting their backs. And low abs are an area that a lot of people need to work. Also, if your low abs are stronger, you can relieve the low back from some of the work it has to do, lifting and things. You can learn to use your abs. But you can't always bend your knees. But anyway, the important thing is to keep your back pushed down. Use those deeper muscles. Push your low back down. It arches up when your abs are weak. So anytime you need to rest, hug both knees in and rock. And I would always recommend that any leg lifting that you do, any strengthening of the low abs, you hug your knees to stretch the back and you rock to massage it between each one. Just take the time to do it, even if you do less. Take the time to do that. Okay. I don't know whether to do the series that I want to do at the beginning or the end. I think this class, we're just going to do a lot of the basic movements. We're not going to do that one core thing. Actually, it's yoga core. We're going to do a lot of the basic movements. So arms out to the side, legs on the mat. Slowly lift your right leg up. You can point your toes, but you don't have to overdo it. You can just keep them pointing. Take the leg across Now, if you can't take it straight across, if it ends up down here somewhere, bend the knee so your thigh goes straight across. Can you even see me? Probably not. Right? If you can't take it, slowly back up, tighten your abs, roll all the way to your back is flat, and lower down. And change sides. And turn on this light. I don't know if that helps any. So do the left, up and across. And again, bend the knee. If the hamstring is too tight, just pulling your leg down. Bring it back up, lower down. This works the back and the waist. And the outer part of the hip. Don't try to force your shoulder down. When you take the leg across, it's okay if the shoulder lifts. Try to keep your hand on the floor, though. If you find that you're lifting way up and you're pulling on this shoulder, then have something there that you rest your arms on, like a blanket or a block, just like we do when we do twisting poses. We now know to put our arm on something if it doesn't rest on the floor, or you can't rest the elbow on the floor. One more time, both sides. I can't do the left side, so after you finish the left side, hug both knees in and rock. A few more for the low abs, arms by your side, legs up. Again, they're up. So knee bent if you need to be, but they're not out. They're up, right? Lift your feet or your knees or however you're doing it toward the ceiling without taking them down, but swinging them up. Try to start from a starting position and then just lift. It's a little lift. Swinging will lift you higher, but that's cheating. You're not using your abs as much. You're using momentum in the swing of the weight of your legs. Feel the low abs working. And try not to bring your feet so far overhead that way. Try to lift them up. You're going to bring them a little bit that way, and you're going to take them a little bit away, but you're not going to swing them. And you're not going to take them way far. And just use the pull of the hamstrings to lift your back. Not if you want to strengthen your core, your abs part. One more time. Hug both knees in. Rock. Hands under your buttocks. And you know the reason for this is to keep your low back down toward the mat. It rounds, it kind of rounds your back because you're lifting your buttocks with your hands or a blanket. Legs up. Lower your legs toward the mat. Tighten your abs. Push your back down. When you reach a point where you feel your back starting to lift up, that's all the further you go. Slowly up. Squeeze your legs a little bit together. That helps. It actually helps stabilize your back too. Slowly down. Don't touch the mat. And you can do this with knees bent if your abs aren't as strong right now, so you don't have as much weight pulling. Tighten. Push your back down. Lift up. Try to go slowly. That's harder work. Now, as you take your legs down together and you lift them, take them wide and do a half circle, bringing them back up and together. That works leg muscles differently, hips differently, and back differently. Yes, big focus on low abs. And hug both knees in, rock. Now I'm going to do this facing away. Hopefully you'll be able to see. And I'll take this off. Low back. Yeah, I have my kinesiology tape on for my shoulders, but I'm going kayaking later. And it kind of gives me a little bit of extra tendons and ligaments so I don't pull my arms too far. Okay, legs up, arms out to the side. Traditionally, this is done without crossing your ankles. Sometimes we cross one ankle over top and do it that way for a while, and then we cross the other, but traditionally it's legs together. And when you take them out to the right, you don't take them to the point where your left hip lifts. See how that's lift? I don't go that far. It's just a circle out to the right and down toward just above the back. Keep your back flat. And you can put your hands under your hips. Generally, since you don't go very far, you don't have to worry about your arms being out to the side. And then over to the left and back up. And then circle down left without lifting your right buttock up. And just above the mat and upright. And stop at top. So you're going in both directions. Down right, first time, up left, not big circles, not lifting up, down left, not lifting up your back or your buttocks or your shoulders, and upright. And keep doing that for a little bit. Low abs, waist muscles. Carefully, slowly be aware of what you're doing, what you're feeling, and when you need to rest. Overdoing it will not make you stronger faster. What it will do is discourage you, cause pain, which will cause things to tighten up, so they become less flexible for a while. It will set up a body-mind connection that says, I hate this. This hurts me. So don't hurt yourself. Little bit, little movement, even smaller circle. Even don't lower it as close to the mat. Just keep it up. Just do a little circle up like we do with the ball sometimes. Doesn't have to be big. You're going in both directions. The next time you go down left and upright, you stop and hug both knees in. Okay, we're going to do hands and knees. So if you need extra padding under your knees, you can fold up the mat in the middle and make it extra padding. You can put a blanket under your knees. There are knee pads, even in yoga. There are yoga knee pad things that you can get for under your knees. You can shift, instead of, if you're on hands and knees, we always instruct knees under hips, wrists under shoulders, but that puts more pressure on your kneecap, and if you shift your hips back a little bit, that may take the pressure off your kneecap, and that's okay. Do that. Again, it's going to be primarily low abs, but we're also going to be working the low back primarily and the glutes. So bring your right knee in toward your chest, head to knee, straighten it back parallel, not higher parallel to work more of your back, and then lower it down. Left knee slowly in, head to knee, slowly back parallel, and slowly down. Try not to bend either elbow, and keep moving. Slowly working again, primarily the low abs and the back. The glutes help support the back and the SI joints. And it gives your jeans something to hang on to, right? Oh, better than those. Never mind. I don't even want that picture in my head. Oh, I don't want to talk fun stuff. These are going to be recordings that you'll be watching forever. And you can always turn the sound off, on these recordings and just watch after you're used to them. Left knee in and out and down. One more time. After you finish the left side, and separate your knees a little bit and sit back in child's pose. Back up to hands and knees. This is for the glutes. And obviously it'll affect the low back. Left leg up. Knee bent 90 degrees. Bottom of the foot facing the ceiling without bending your right elbow. Press up a little bit and release just a little bit. See the movement? It's not very big. Push up. Feel that muscle working. Release. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Lower down. Right leg. Press up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Lower down. Sit back on your heels in child's pose. Stretch your back. Okay, come over onto your belly, on your forearms. And the modifications for this, if having your elbows under your shoulders, actually a little bit wider that way than your shoulders. If you feel this too much in your back, or if you're lifted too far off the mat when you do it, if your navel isn't touching the mat when you do this, move your arms forward to sink down a little bit. Try to keep your shoulders from coming up, punching up. Try to keep them down, so you have to keep a little bit of tension there. Keep your shoulders away from your neck. You can also do this with your belly on a blanket. A lot or a little. Your elbows are under your shoulders. Your belly on a blanket, and you're not getting as much of an arch, which is good. That's fine. So you can do it on a blanket, you can do it on the mat with your arms forward. And again, the blanket is stopping at my lowest ribs, and my legs are off the sides of the blanket. so that my hips are a little bit higher. And lift both legs up and lower down. Both legs straight and lower. Feel your glutes working. Feel your low back working. Straight. Then lower and keep moving. When you're on the blanket, it seems like you're lifting your legs higher. You're really not in relation to your torso. But right now, the top of my knee still touches. I'm not lifting my legs up way high. I'm just doing this to strengthen. I'm pointing my toes. Now, if you can, lift both legs up. Try to keep them lifted as you... Actually, let's separate the legs a little bit more, because you're going to slide apart. You're going to want to slide apart, so let's do it. So your legs are a little bit more than hip distance apart. See there, I was hunching down into my shoulder. So keep lifted. Keep your chest lifted. Lift both legs up. Bend them. Straighten them. Lower. Now you're on your elbows. Let's do it one more time that way. Now come down onto your forehead on your stacked hands. Lift, bend, and straighten, and lower. Lift, bend, straighten, and lower. My thighs stay touching. My knees might come off. When I bend, my legs go down a little bit because of the pull. That's okay. And straighten and lower. This is really good for the back. It's not comfortable. Keep going if you can, or when you're ready, get back in child's pose. Slowly go to child's pose, because that's moving your back in the opposite direction as the way you are now. So you need to get there slowly, so it doesn't spasm or anything. Spasm. Okay, everybody, sit back on your heels, stretch your back. We have a small group today. I know some people are out of town, but I hope everybody understood that the end of May is when we're ending, not the beginning of May. I may need to send out another email, but it is a beautiful sunny day, and we don't get those very much these days in the spring. Okay, still lying on your belly, arms still, hands still stacked, forehead on your stacked arms. This time you're going to lift your chest and your legs. You're going to come back down. Don't lift high, even if you can lift high. Stay low. Keep your forehead stuck to your hands. Work the whole back of the body. Especially if you have scoliosis, you don't want to lift high because you're going to be lifting crooked. You're going to be pushing into that curve and making that curve more unless you're really aware of what you're feeling. So carefully, slowly lift so you work both sides as equally as you can and lower back down. Strengthening the back. Yes, next week we'll do upper abs. Focus the regular Pilates kind of stuff. And then the following week we'll do the full body bunch of stuff. Standing, core. Okay, lower down, slowly back to child's pose. Okay, come up to seated. More low abs. Some of our least favorites. So, I can't see you, so you can just watch them and say, oh boy, am I glad I'm not doing that. Legs straight forward, lean back. Generally, it's a good idea to turn your fingers to point forward like this, behind you, so you can bend your elbows more easily. It's hard to bend your elbows when your fingers are pointing back or even out to the side. You can bend your elbows a little bit. Some people find that it's more comfortable on their back if they're all the way down on their forearms. Not me. That hurts my back. I guess I better do it this way. Unless you're really careful. If you don't lower your legs too far toward the mat, then this could probably work. But I find that I arch up too much when I'm down on my forearms. But anyway, do the way everybody's back issues and everything else totally different. So do the way that works for you. We're only going to do 3 just to remind you of this one. Oh, I'm so happy. Only 3. Legs up together. Do a half a circle, stop at bottom center, don't touch the mat. Lift, other half of the circle. Lift. 2, bend your knees slightly. Lift. 2. Be careful you're not feeling this too much in your back. 3, pull your abs in. 3. And let's cross-legged, left leg in front, stretch over your legs, stretch your back. As we pause for a tiny bit. What day is today? Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. It's a busy week for me. Slowly back up, but busy is okay once in a while. Legs straight forward, legs together, lift up, lower straight down, do half circle to the top, lower straight down, do the other half. 2, 2, 3, 3. Now, this is something we don't usually do in this class because we do it in later classes, but coming up, we're not going to get to it, and we didn't get to it in yoga, so lay over on your right side and pull your left heel in. And I do recommend this for the end of core where you're doing a lot of leg lifting. You're using your quads even though you're working your abs and good for back and blah, blah, blah. So you need to stretch them, especially the hip flexors, because that tight hip flexors will limit your step, your shuffle. We've seen it. You want to take a full step and it affects your back. Keep holding. And you know you can use a strap if you can't pull this high, this close, always, but somehow feel a stretch in your quadricep and your hip flexors. And yeah, kinesiology tape is good for anything, especially if you have strained or pulled tendons and ligaments. It's like giving yourself back some ligaments and tendons. It stretches a little bit, but it supports, which is what the tendons and ligaments do. They don't stretch a lot, they support. So it kind of prevents you from going too far. Release, change sides. And if I forget to put them in, and I know when we kayak, we're supposed to use our core. And I do when I think about it. But I get to talking, I get to looking around, and I start using my arms and shoulders more than I should. And this, if I don't have kinesiology tape on, they really ache the next day, that night and the next day. And it's not the joint, it's the muscles, tendons, ligaments. So I can do something so I don't have that ache. And I'm still getting the exercise. You're still getting the exercise. The shoulders are still getting the work, the strengthening, but not the straining part. And you can use it all different ways. Knees, feet, plantar fasciitis, neck. Athletes, you can see my son was showing me some athletes are just way taped up, and they're not doing it because they have an injury, they're doing it so they don't. Release. Take a moment to rest. No, you don't take a moment to rest. Gentle time. On your back, hug both knees in, rock. I think I need to move my camera further away for classes. My mat keeps moving forward. Keep rocking. No, can't really do it. You can also cup your hands over your knees and do some circles. Other way around. Or if you're just rocking, just keep rocking. I'm going to do the strap stretches at the end of this one. And as you know, you can do the strap stretches at the end of a Hatha class as well. And the muscles are nicely warmed up. Okay, hug your right knee and left leg out on the mat, or you can keep the left knee bent if it feels better on the front of the left hip or the back. Or you can straighten it out, or you can straighten it out part way. Keep it a little bit bent. You hug that right knee in. Keep your shoulders relaxed. That's the thing to pay attention to. We have neck pain, shoulder pain, and sometimes it's just because we're using our shoulders when we don't need to. It's just habit. And we hold stress and hold. And this is a protective gesture, lifting your shoulders up. Hiding. It's a protective, and even anger can make us do it. Anger and fear are very closely related. So try to, again, be aware, not just during classes, not just when you're practicing. Be aware all day, as much as you can. When something happens, do a quick body check and see if you're holding tension someplace. Or breath. You pant. If you can change your breath, you can change your mind and your emotions. You can relax. If you can relax your breath, it kind of tricks your body into thinking, oh, everything's okay. Tricks your mind into thinking. Put your right hand over the knee and rotate gently a little bit. Don't lift the left buttock. Don't lift the right buttock. Keep the back flat. Keep the buttocks on the ground as you do this rotation. Try to do a complete rotation as much as is complete for you, that you can still keep your back and your buttocks on the mat. Lifting is just because it's tight and you've gone beyond where it can really move. So your body's just lifting so you can move it there, but you're not really getting any more range of motion. We are doing these for 1 minute. There's lots of apps that you can download that'll start over again. It can give you like a 10-second beep, 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 beep to allow you to get into the next position, then it starts over again. Other direction, please. The second direction with whatever side is usually more challenging. We don't even realize it, but we pick the easy direction first. The body-mind does without any interference from us. So the second direction is usually less comfortable. Now bring the knee back in, shift your hips a little bit to the right. You can bend your right knee and push against the floor to shift your hips to the right. And take your knee across to the left, straightening out your left leg. Use your left hand. Don't force your right shoulder down. If it lifts, it lifts. Don't let your arm hang out. That's pulling on your shoulder. You can rest it on your side. Let the elbow drop back. The best thing to do in a twist, any and all twists that you line on the floor, is to put a blanket underneath your elbow, lower arm, and upper arm a little bit. You don't want to just the upper arm and have your elbow hanging out, straighten your elbow. You don't want just your lower arm, not supporting your shoulder well. And a block will do it. But don't try to force the shoulder down, nor don't let your arm hang out there in space unsupported. You turn the whole rib cage to the right if you want to get a little bit more rotation. You don't just pull your shoulder toward the floor. It has nothing to do with shoulder. It has to do with hip, waist twisting. Feel the stretch. Feel where you feel the stretch. Where you feel the stretch is where you're tightest on this side. Notice that. And think about it and see if there's another way to stretch just that area where you're tight if you want. Okay, roll back over, shift your back to flat, let your right knee go out to the right. Again, don't force it to the floor. Just let gravity stretch it. Lying on your back. You can always put something under it. If even gravity is pulling up your left hip too much, you can always put something under your right leg, knee area. Because you want to keep it left side down. You keep the left knee bent a little bit, but don't lift your left buttock up. I hope I'm not overdoing all these details, but again, you can always turn the sound off if you wish to later. Now straighten your right leg back out and hug your left knee in. You can bend the right knee a little bit. If you want, hug your left knee in, use some arm muscle and just hold it, just a hug. This is the routine that I have started again. Not because I have back pain, but because I just need to do something in the mornings. Because I am feeling tight with so many less classes than I used to, and I'm not real good about practicing on my own either. But I've started in the morning. I do this routine, and then I do some downward dog and maybe a warrior or triangle or something, other things. But I start with this, and if this is all I do, I'm happy. Because I already feel better when I'm done. may start going to hot yoga. That's a challenge for me. I like that. Plus, he now knows. Don't tell me where to put my feet. Circle the leg from the hip. And I know some of you really can't handle the heat, and I don't blame you. But if anybody wants to go, I can let you know we're going to go. It'll probably be a Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, because that's when Scott teaches. I haven't had any of the other teachers, and they're probably really good. But like most people, I get used to one, and if it's somebody I like, then I can follow them, and anyway, so I tend to stick with one teacher. And he tells good stories too, and he also plays good music too, which I like. Okay, circle, and on top of the knee, don't let go, just to think you have to circle the leg. We straighten our leg all the time, but we don't do, so it's kind of like a half circle. So you pull it in and you almost take it straight across. You pull it in, or however you're doing it. But it's almost straight across, because you don't let it out too far, and with the length of the arm and everything. So I forgot to tell Terry that. I should have told him it's more like a half circle than even an oval. Poor Terry, he misses us. He was fun. He did fit in, didn't he? Go the other direction, please. And I was going to cancel my Zoom subscription, but I'm not going to, because I may have pop-up classes now and then. I may get bored, especially in the winter. And I will send out an email saying, with a link, and say, hey, let's do a class. May. I still want to find that place. If we could do that once a month, just get together, have a class, that'd be fun. Now bring the knee in, take it across, please, to the right. Remember, the left shoulder doesn't get forced down. Rotate the whole torso toward the left if you want. Support the left arm. Knee is going across the body. Twisting poses are really important. Yoga is one of the few disciplines that has twisting poses, twisting things. And it's really good for the immune system, because it's really good for the digestive system. It cleanses the liver, squeezes it, squeezes the kidneys a little bit. That's what Kundalini yoga is so good at, working on the organs, the glands. Even if it is weird. Roll back over, the left knee to the outside, right leg straight. Support the left knee if needed, with a blanket or a block or a pillow. Now also bend the right knee, bottoms of your feet together, knees apart. If you put your feet up on a block or a blanket, that flattens your low back a little bit because sometimes this can aggravate backs. Support under your knees, one or both. Generally in this one, since you're bending both knees, if you have to support one knee, support the other even if it doesn't need it. So that because this goes all the way back to your hips and your back, and you don't want to be lopsided. So, a good idea in this case to have support under both knees if you need it under one. And sometimes it just may be today. So don't think you never need a support. Sometimes you do. Just who knows why. Life. Okay, knees up, knees bent, feet on the mat, put the strap around the ball of the right foot, the ball of the foot, so that you can maybe allow that toes to come down a little bit, the heel to maybe be a little bit higher. So you're kind of relaxing that leg. Lift the right leg straight up. Left leg can stay bent if it feels, and it will feel better on your back. If you need to do it, do it. Or you can have it straight. Right knee is not locked. And if you relax the foot and let the toes come down, you get more of a stretch in your calf. It will also relax your leg more, so your knee may bend a little bit more because you keep a little bit of tension in that leg to keep it straight. So anyway, if you want to stretch your calf more, relax it a little bit, bring the toes down toward the shin a little bit. If you want to stretch your hamstrings more, then keep a little bit of tension in the leg to keep it a little bit straighter without locking the knee. You can use two hands around the strap. You can reach further up, or you can let it rest down. Your hands, arms down. Hold it. Take the legs slowly out to the right. Release the strap if you need to and let it rest on the mat, and then slide it up a little bit. Whatever you do, keep the left buttock down. Left buttock, left hip stays down. You can even have the left knee bent if you want, but still keep the left buttock down. You can keep the right leg in the air out to the right if you want, whatever way you want to feel the stretch, but keep the buttock down, because if it lifts, you're going to lose whatever edge you're working on, whatever stretch you're working on. That's giving in because the hip and the muscles are tight. So don't do that if you can help it. The lady at the picnic on Sunday, the two that were standing, that stayed standing kind of at the entrance, the one with the long, straight hair, the tall lady, she's a master gardener, and she has chickens. And she never refrigerates her eggs. She can keep them in a basket on the counter for a month. And they do that in England too. I've seen that on some of the shows. They have the eggs in a basket, and if you never refrigerate them, then you never have to refrigerate them. However, if they are refrigerated, then they need to be continued to be. Take it up and across. Shift your hips to the right. Anyway, she also has bees. And she said that she just cleaned out one of the hives last year, I guess, year before last, I guess, maybe. And she went down, and she was thinking she needed to get another queen and some bees. And she went down to the mailbox, and there was a swarm on her mailbox. If you've ever seen a picture of them, they swarm to find a new place. And if you reach in, they're not aggressive. You can reach in. If you can hold the queen, you can take that whole swarm on your arm. I've seen videos of this up to, and she did that. She took the whole swarm and took it up and put the queen in the new hive. And that's where they are. And I also know other people who called beekeepers when they see a swarm, and they come and they can put it into a box and transport it. I don't know if I'd be brave enough. Slowly leg back up, lower down, left leg up. Choose your stretch. Hold it at the maximum. Relax your shoulders. She's a very interesting person. Shari is her name. And I think Angela, the woman standing beside her, is also a master gardener. Angela owns the vape stores. One of them is in Bentonville, near where the bike place used to be, before the bike place moved. Vape and CBD now, oils and things. She's also she's a musician, singer, in a group. Also a very interesting person. You're all interesting. Legs slowly out to the left. Hold it. Up and across, please. Tomorrow, David and I are going to Eureka. We spend the afternoon in Eureka. That'll be nice. We don't go there as often as we used to. I haven't been to Terra Studios in forever either. Legs slowly back up. Lower down. Come seated, please. Left leg crossed in front. Sitting on a blanket, supporting knees as needed. Excuse me. Inhale, lengthen your spine. Exhale, lead with your heart. Reach forward and down and stretch and hold the stretch. Oh, something about free radicals as far as oxygen, antioxidants, something about free radicals attaching to oxygen, something about free radicals. I can't remember. Slowly up, twist left. I'll have to see if I can find that article. It was good. Yeah, definitely free radicals. I'm a free radical, and all of you are free radicals too. I know you. If you practice on your own, um, don't hesitate to just focus on one or two poses, and just work on some of the details of the pose. Maybe do a warm up, and then just do one or two. Focus on some of the details. Try some different variations and see how they feel. Again, I'm going to be showing you some books that have a lot of that stuff in it. Come back to center, other leg in front. One just says the 30 basic poses, which is a really good book. One has a lot of details, a lot of different ways. Left leg in front, stretch forward and down, hold the stretch. I have a lot of favorite books, but these two are the ones I go to when I need to know different ways of doing things to share, or for myself, or just I'm bored and I want to do something a different way. The one particularly by Rodney Lee, that's just an amazing book. And then his, and I don't know if Judith's does, but his has routines in the back, so you can just follow his routines and do some. Like the Yin book that I'm going to share, there's routines in the back for 60 minutes or 90 minutes of beginners or intermediate, and sequenced. So, and they're easy to follow. And all this stuff is in the book as to what you're doing. Come back up, twist right. In some regards, especially in, it's better if you do it from a book. It is a little bit harder to do from a book. Unless you're just focusing on a few poses. And I would have, if I brought out all my books, I'd have 4 stacks about that high. Oh, yeah, I guess only 4 stacks. No, not if you count the Kundalini yoga books. Maybe 5 stacks. Come back to center. And let's just do some breathing. Inhale, arms out to the side and up. And exhale, palms together. Breathe. Breathing. And pranayama, the 3rd, the 4th step in traditional yoga. Maybe it's the 5th. I think it's the 4th. So it's advanced. The sun has come before pranayama. One more time. Inhale out and up. And exhale to namaste. And I'll see some of you through the week. And I'll see some of you next Saturday. Have a wonderful rest of the day and rest of the week. Satnam and namaste. See you tomorrow. Or no, Friday.